Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Welcome all my friends to the podcast that features, just the opportunity to thank the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without him, I wouldn't have this microphone and this platform to be able to come to you and to give you these amazing sports insights. And it is through him all things are possible that I am able to be the amazing sports podcaster that I am. Scott, so happy to be with you here today.
Yeah, I like to thank the Lord and Savior for giving me the power and strength to cut off the school bus that I drove in front of, to get my parking spot this morning.
Ooh, ballsy. But no, I say that in jest, and we could talk a little bit later why I opened the show in the way that I did. But Scott, I do have an opening question for you this week. First and foremost, I'd like to preface this question by saying, in the history of Major League Baseball, a first-time class has never entirely fallen off the ballot after just 1 year.
Okay.
I think that's possible this year. I truly think that none of this Hall of Fame first-year players are worthy, and I'd like to have your opinion on that. But I also think that enough voters will agree with us and fall off. Let's start it with Ryan Braun, steroid user. He's not going to get he got popped. He's not going to get any push, and he didn't have the totality of numbers anyway.
Well, scumbag. On top of that, where he's blaming a courier.
Shin-Soo Choo. Nice player. Nice player. Not a Hall of Famer.
No, he's not him.
Edwin Encarnacion. Great peak. Didn't compile enough numbers for me. Like 420 career homers.
Zero defensive value.
That too. Had a great peak. Again, his time in Toronto was as good as anybody else's, but to me it just wasn't long enough, Scott.
Nope, he's not in.
Gio Gonzalez, need I say more?
No, you don't need to.
Hang on, I hit the wrong button. Alex Gordon for the Royals, I think was a nice player, a foundational piece, probably in the Royals Ring of Honor, but nowhere near a Hall of Famer. He was a defensive wizard out there in left field, but at the end of the day, the guy was like a 275 hitter.
No, he's not good enough.
Cole Hamels featured in some great World Series teams, some big moments. But again, we were talking about this today earlier. The totality of the career is nowhere near what a Hall of Fame pitcher should look like to me.
I do. I love the commercial where the guy came out just in a random Phillies jacket, and he's like, "Come on, Cole, what are you doing?" You remember that one?
I do remember that one.
Who the hell are you? No, he's not it.
Another guy with a really, really high peak, but it was only like 2 or 3 years. Matt Kemp, not in.
No.
As much, and again, I hate this motherfucker. He shouldn't even be on this list. Howie Kendrick, fuck him.
Wow.
Fuck that guy. He's not a Hall of Famer. He made one good swing in his life. He got lucky.
That's another rant I could go into, is how they decide who gets on the ballot.
Yeah. How about this one, Scott? This name shouldn't even be here. Nick Markakis.
You serious, right?
With a fucking straight face. Hey, guys, you want to vote for Rick Markakis as a Hall of Famer? No, thank you. Daniel Murphy, who had a couple nice years with the Mets, but like also had to move to first base because he literally physically forgot how to play second base, if I remember correctly. I think he had like a Chuck Knobloch issue where he could no longer throw the ball. And Rick Porcello, nice,
He
okay.
had a didn't he have a Cy Young?
He might, yeah, but it
I think
was
he had
like
that one
it
like
was
20
based on
points.
wins. It was based
Yeah,
on wins and not on like ERA, right? Like he had a shit ton of wins, but like a near 4 ERA.
yeah, so no, not him.
And then last and not least, a guy who maybe garners the most, either he or Braun, is Hunter Pence. But again, like I loved Hunter Pence. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No, he was never he did not reach critical mass, as the,
No,
chemist would say.
he kind of stayed as a really nice complementary piece throughout his entire career. Like he's the guy that like if you made a move for Hunter Pence at the deadline, you're like nice. He'll slot in wherever we need him. He'll be a nice contact hitter. He did it with the Phillies. He did it with the Giants. Um, he's a
Does he
clubhouse
feel
guy.
does he feel like the baseball version of Robert Ory?
I think that's a fair compare. Maybe I think that's maybe a little bit underwhelming him. I think it's somewhere in between. I think he's more like a Derek Fisher.
I don't know that. I thought Ory was better than Fisher as a player.
I just think different type of players. I
Yeah,
guess
different type of players, yeah, but all right,
I
yeah,
mean,
so I agree with your premise that none of those guys will get the support needed to move on.
do you agree that literally it's less than 5%? You have to carry 5% in year one to remain on the ballot. Do you think that this could be a record breaking year where no first year players carry on to the second year?
I think so because obviously I think some of those guys will garner votes because they're dipshits with ballots, but I don't think it'll be up to the level of 5%.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. So, I mean, there have been years before where no one has gotten in at all, right? That's
Right, yes, that's
not
happened.
completely unheard of. And that, I'm intrigued to see what happens this year because some of the bigger names that probably should get in are tainted, right? Carlos Beltran, Chase
Ooh,
Utley, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez,
well,
Andy Pettit. All these guys should be no brainers, right? But they're
is
not.
how is Utley tainted? Was he wrapped up in steroids or
I
I
didn't
don't
say
remember.
Utley. I didn't say him.
Oh, I thought you mentioned Utley, so I
Did
thought
I? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say Utley. I also just don't think Utley's a Hall of Famer. That's a whole other. That's a
last I
whole other.
heard Beltron was on ballots reported was on 85% of them.
Baseball Reference right now has him on 70.3. I don't know how up to date that is.
Okay,
Um,
so well, okay.
I don't know how up to date Baseball References is.
That's only that's only the ones reported, right?
Yeah,
And I tend to believe that, the people who are more secretive might be more apt to vote for him. Maybe they're ashamed of that vote. I don't know. Maybe that's just me wish casting that into effect. I don't know.
I don't know, but to me, so Beltron, at least you can't say he's not tainted. If you want to hate on the Astros, then you have to say Beltron is tainted. He was fired from his managerial job for being involved with that scandal before he ever even managed a game. A-Rod juiced, Manny juiced, Pettit juiced. Um,
Hey, Beltron is undefeated as a manager.
he never managed a game, did he? Or did he get one?
No, he didn't manage a game, but he's undefeated.
I don't know if that's the term you can use there if you've not even been battle
has
tested.
he
Like,
has he has he been has he had a
no,
loss?
like no. So, like for example, let me give you an example of how you can use that. Right, I went to St. Mary's University, as was where I started my collegiate education, and we had a football team once, and that football team was coached by none other than Dwight D. Eisenhower, and they played their first game, and they fucking kicked ass. Scott, they won, and then World War I breaks out, and these young men all have to go fight. And after the war, St. Mary's decides we're not going to have a football team. So our university has many a shirt that claims that we are forever undefeated in football because of that one win that took place before we decided to participate in World War One. That is how you claim to be undefeated.
Well, he has not lost a game, so therefore he is, and he was officially hired as manager, so therefore he can. I think he can make that claim. He can also, but
Fair
he's
enough.
also winless. He's also winless, so it cuts both ways.
Well, speaking of, you know, cutting both ways, that Texans game, whoo, CJ Stroud cutting me deep with his turnovers, and that defense just found ways to sew it all up, cover up any kind of blemish that the offense had. And my oh my, they put 13 points on the board defensively, which would have outscored the entire Pittsburgh Steelers offense on their own, plus the 17 points that CJ and the boys provided.
Well, I sent you a stat before the show, and it gets me on a number of levels. Like you're familiar with quarterback rating, correct?
I am, yes.
So this is not the ESPN QBR. This is, the high is I think 140 or something like that, 141 or something like it's a perfect quarterback rating. So
Yep.
apparently, and this flabbergasted me. Apparently, if you go over and hit the popcorn vendor with every one of your throws, you have a rating of just under 40. That surprised me. I would have thought it would have been much lower. Derek Stingley, when targeted as the primary corner, has a quarterback rating against, I think, of 16.7. And here's the one that's going to kill you, Tim. Kamari Laster, 6.4. So what do you think of those numbers?
I think that it's pretty impressive. I was actually shocked that Stingley had a higher
I'm
higher
not.
one.
I'm not, because Laster's been better this year, I think. Yeah, although Stingley is first team All Pro for the second year in a
They're
row.
both phenomenal, man. Like at the end of the day, like I don't think it's unfair to say the Texans have two of the top 5 corners in the league.
No, it isn't. And then when you tack on, and this is the point I think, some other people were making, you think about your four most important defenders are your edge rushers and your corners.
Mm-hmm.
And think of who this team has as their two top edge rushers and two top corners.
You have two of the top 5 players at their position in both of those spots, right? Like, and I understand where you're coming from because I really do think Stingley gets the tougher assignment most days. And Kamari gets thrown at more realistically. He really does. And he's been tested this year. Kamari has been picked on and he has risen to the occasion. And in a big way. I think we've had a huge step in his game in year 2 here. But year 3 for Kamari, right? But Kalen Bullock has been, or Bullock, I guess, has been just as good. They said he was kind of Ed Reed like when we drafted him, and I mean, I think we're really starting to see it. We're really starting to see that center fielder out there, right? Who just understands how to bait. I mean, he fucking baited Aaron Rodgers last night. And Aaron Rodgers' last ever professional throw is going to go down as a pick six, and Kalen Bullock is going to be the guy holding that fucking football for the rest of his life.
Can we pause for a moment, Tim, and just bask in the glow of how pathetic that tackle effort was from Aaron Rodgers?
Ooh, see, I got to be honest with you. I went the other way. I thought he came in trying to just lay a big fucking knock. And that's what it was. He was like, fuck it. That's the last throw I'm ever going to make. It's not going to be a peak six. I'm going to knock this fucker out. And just completely whiffed on it is how it looked to me. But yeah, either way, I think I was telling my brother what I said is 10 years from now, It's going to be a fun little trivia argument at a Thanksgiving dinner table of, who was the guy who picked six on Aaron Rodgers' last throw as a professional quarterback. It's going to be a moment, right? And I can't tell you how good that felt though, Scott. Like I really can't tell you how good it felt to like essentially usher a Hall of Fame quarterback into retirement. I mean,
Well,
hey, thanks for your time, Aaron. Here's the wheelchair and a gold jacket. We'll see you in 5 years.
and I love how, and we'll get to this later on, but I love the fact that, he was basically coming out and begging, I'm only staying if Mike Tomlin's staying. And Mike Tomlin today was deuces. I'm out. And I understand it from his perspective because to me, where does that team go with Aaron Rodgers at the helm next year?
Essentially what they were this year. Probably worse though, because they squeaked out a lot of games they had no business winning. And so they went 10-7 this year. Easily could have gone 7-10, the
Oh,
way that
yeah,
they
every
won some of
year,
those close games.
every NFL team, right? Because I mean, so many of these games are one-score games. It's a year-to-year basis, right? And so you're going to have to rely on free agency and another lower pick because you're in the playoffs. So you're going to have to look at that team. To me, outside of DK Metcalf, that wide receiver core was terrible.
And honestly, is he even a guy that you can build around as your number one wide receiver? Does he run a complete route tree? Does he do or is he just a guy who's really ripped, runs really fast, and is really tall? Like let's be honest with what DK Metcalf is. Is he that fucking good? Because he
Well, yeah.
didn't do anything in that game last night outside of the first drive and a half. Once he had that drop, he was done. And they moved Stingley onto him instead of Kamari, and literally we didn't hear from him.
No, and yeah, and I think most observers have said he's not a number one wide receiver. He's at the very best a 1A, or 1B if you've got another guy. And I could see an offense where you had somebody as good as him, who
Him and Pickens would have been nice together if they
yeah.
didn't.
Well, if you had a guy that was more of a tactician, like say a Cooper Cup in his prime,
Sure.
or a Pick and Nakua, or also, but
Even
obviously,
say fucking Andre Johnson with that guy, right? Andre ran the whole route tree. Andre ran every route on the fucking tree. You need someone like that on the other side so you can be the Will Fuller. You can stretch the field and be a viable deep ball guy. But you can't build an offense around DK Metcalf as your number one receiver, spend all your money on defense, and have a collection of just Tavon Austin III or whoever the fuck that was, washed up Adam Thielen, washed up Jonnu Smith. Like literally, it was like the old folks' home in Pittsburgh. Like every single one of the guys on the field was a guy I thought retired 2 years ago.
I was, feel like that scene from Major League. This guy's dead.
Well, then take him off the list.
But
that is fucking Steelers training camp. He's like, we have Jason Kelsey with an invite. He retired 2 years ago. Well, fuck, take him off then.
Imagine like Irv Cross. What?
It says you have Deacon Jones on this list. I think okay, whatever. He's not available.
Yeah, I mean,
did you talk to Mean Joe Green before you said he would play nose tackle again for us, Tomlin?
Sam Huff has been dead for at least 10 years. Come on. But, I want to give roses to two guys. And if I'm stepping on any future hat tip toes, I apologize. But number one, Sheldon Rankins left for a year, came back, and he's better than he was the first go around. And now I want to ask you this as a Houston fan, because you're a younger Houston fan. When he got that touchdown, were you sitting there thinking, okay, they're going to find some reason not to allow this? They're going to find some reason not to allow this. They're going to find some reason not to allow this.
Absolutely.
This can't be happening. They're not going to allow this.
I was watching it back, right? The first time through, I'm like, okay, that was fun, but like there's no way his knee wasn't down. And then it was not like he never even went to the ground to get it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed this. I texted my brother about it, no one responded. I think he waved goodbye. I think he gets the ball. If you watch the fucking thing, he sticks his hand out like this, and then he fucking takes off running. I think he saw the green grass ahead of him, and he fucking waved to everybody.
Yeah, I believe it. And the other guy is Alshire. He
Mhm.
also is going to a Pro Bowl, first one of his career. He was a rookie with D'Amico Ryans in San Francisco. Um, so I don't know if you stayed around to watch the postseason interview with
We'll,
him and
we'll ta
Ryan.
that's what I wanna talk about more later.
Okay,
But yeah,
yeah. So I love that guy. Walter Payton nominee from the Texans, great guy. And you talk about a guy who's, I think, whole demeanor off the field does not match who he is on the field. He is a violent motherfucker on the field, but off the field, I mean, you always worry about those guys who are violent on the field. You worry about them taking it with them off, but
the
he seems,
Vontez Burficits of the world, the Bill
yeah,
Romanowskis.
he seems to be a guy that, can lay that on the field and just, pick it back up when he's back on the field. But this is a defense with 3 levels of brilliance. I mean, a great secondary. In addition, you mentioned
Wow.
Bullard. Jalen Reed came back, 6th round pick. He's probably more impactful than your 3rd round pick was from out of USC in that secondary. And then, of course, I don't know. Did you see who got the start at the other safety spot?
It was a Bryant, wasn't it?
It was one Jimmy Ward.
Oh, did he play? I didn't realize he was on the field.
That's who ABC had on their graphic. I don't know. Maybe they got it wrong.
I think they got it wrong. I saw 25 Bryant
Um,
playing at the other safety spot. I haven't seen Jimmy Ward all season.
I haven't either. So I was like, Jimmy Ward's out there. Hey.
No, they got that wrong. It was Bryant was the other safety. But no, I think that the title we have on this section is that was the most dominant defensive performance, not only in team history since the 2000 Ravens. Like I can't think of the Texans, what they did on offense through 3 quarters of that game deserved to be down 21 points. Am I wrong?
No, and you're not wrong. And I think the only team, I think, obviously in this postseason, the team we're playing, obviously the Patriots held the Chargers to 3 points, mainly because the same thing, Harbaugh didn't take the points. He kind of pulled D'Amico inside the 10-yard line. Like, we haven't moved the ball at all. Let me go forward on 4th down. Yeah, that'll get them. Which is just, completely asinine stupid. But yeah, I think especially after that Stroud turnover deep in territory, that
He
was
almost fumbled it twice and then threw a pick.
well, that was in their territory. The pick was in their territory, but I'm talking about the fumbles. Both fumbles are like, what the
Oh,
fuck?
yeah.
It's like, and
It
I
just
get
felt so
the
out of character for him. The pick was like he just for 3 quarters to me, Scott, he looked rattled. He never looked settled in. And then he hit a throw on the right sideline on a deep crossing route to Christian Kirk on a big 3rd down play, like deep in our own
yeah,
territory. It was
yeah,
maybe late in the 3rd, early in the 4th.
yeah.
And from that point on, we saw this, the more calm, level-headed CJ. But I think, one of the things that's going to get overlooked in this because of how bad CJ particularly was through 3 quarters was how good of a game that Nick Caley called.
Yeah,
The offense was moving the ball. We ran the ball well. We had a good mix of play action because of it. You had great under center RPO options where, there was at least 2 opportunities where it looked like we were set up for a run, but the corner was 10 yards off of Higgins. He just hits a quick slant for 7 yards both times. Like, I love that shit, right? Like, let CJ go out there and you know, diagnose what the defense is doing. And yeah, they're going to give him 7 yards to just take it. Fuck yeah. Yes, take a second and 3, right? That's what we need. And so I thought Caley, this might have been his best play calling game. I thought the final touchdown that we put on the board with Marks, the defensive touchdowns were great. But after the defensive touchdown, you're up 11 at that point. Then you get the ball and you march down the field. And you go up, you get that touchdown. It was like a 92-yard drive, I think it was. To me, that was a championship drive, right? Those are the kind of drives that teams that win Super Bowls make, because you're not going to rely on your defense to hold on at the end. You had an opportunity to just put that game away. Again, the pick six was more on the end, but you went up 24-6 at that point and iced the fucking ball game with that long touchdown drive from a combination of the time taken off the clock and the fact that you're up 18 points.
Yeah, there's only 2 bones I have to pick with Caley throughout the whole game. And if you think about it, in a Caley, called game, I think number one, the flea flicker was stupid. Like you were moving the football, you were running the football well, you were, doing the play action, like you said. To me, whenever whenever the other team isn't stopping you, you just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, but I think that my biggest bone was, it wasn't late in the third. I think it was kind of middle of the third quarter. He just, for about a series or 2, abandoned the running game. And I was like, what are we doing? But we immediately go back to it. And that final drive, that was that is basically reaching down and yanking the heart out of the Pittsburgh defense. That's like, we're running the fucking ball. We got Nick Chubb. Here's the guy. We dare you to tackle him. And they couldn't.
And really, it was Marks too, right?
Yeah, Marks too. The touchdown was brilliant. He had that one. Was that the drive where he had like that stumbling 20-yard run where like he almost broke it?
Yeah,
but lost his balance.
Yeah, I thought this was. I feel like, Scott, this was the game that like showed what a lot of our pieces that we picked up in the offseason were used the way they're supposed to be used. We've been on this show talking about, hey, we thought Christian Kirk was going to play this slot role where he comes across the middle of the field, or, we get the ball in his hands and we let him work, run after catch. We didn't see it all year. But hey, what do they do in the playoffs? They put him in the slot and let him work across the middle of the field and get the ball in his hands and let him work. It worked out great. 8 catches, 144 yards. We've talked about Nick Chubb, should have been brought in for 8 to 10 carries max. He's a change of pace guy, a perfect change of pace guy. We thought it was going to be Mixon, but hey, it's Marks. That's fine. Marks has been great. We finally see Chubb as the change of pace guy instead of having to be the starting running back because of all these injuries. And what does he do? He gives you great, tough running for 8 to 10 carries, and he was vital to the win, right? Like some of these offensive pieces that we picked up, Higgins on the outside as the opposite of Nico Collins, a big physical receiver. We're seeing that. We're finally seeing guys used in the way that we thought they were going to be used. And maybe it's taken Caley 17 games to figure out what his roster was made of and, whatever. But it was nice to see the guys, the pieces you have actually used in the ways that like they were designed to be used in.
And thank God for Kirk, because I don't think you're going to have Nico Collins next week. I don't think so either. That was nasty. And, that was a rough game for him. The one thing, the Pittsburgh has one good corner, and he was blanketing Nico most of the night. I don't think he's allowed a touchdown in like, ridiculous number of throws. They put a graphic up. I can't remember what it was.
I mean, CJ's ball placement was terrible on throws to Nico. Yeah, like he set him up to get lit up on the concussion where he shouldn't have even thrown that fucking ball in the first place. Then he airmails one on on the right where he's wide open.
Oh yeah, God, that was rough. And even the touchdown to Kirk was not well thrown. I mean, it was behind Kirk. Kirk kind of bend back and then
Yeah,
kind of slither in. But they're really going to need Kirk because they're going to have Higgins on the outside. I'm guessing Hutchinson's going to be the other guy on the outside.
think so.
You really need that short threat, from Christian Kirk, and he was doing it in addition to those long throws. He bailed them out on at least 4 or 5 occasions.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a heavy
Hey,
dose of Kirk and a heavy dose of Schultz, Scott. I think both of those guys against New England are gonna be huge. And when you look at some of the comments that Harbaugh and Herbert were saying after that New England game, they had no idea what New England was doing. Literally, they were like, "We didn't know what we were looking at out there. No idea." So, you need a veteran, hopefully like Kirk, to help some of these young guys like CJ, like Higgins, like Hutchinson, who are not used to maybe a guy like Mike Vrabel, who could scheme it up as good as anybody else out there, right? So it's his veteran presence of being able to, find holes in this defense and allow us to keep moving the chains. Because I think at the end of the day, Scott, the Texans were 67% on third down. I think it was 10 of 15 is what it ended up being.
yeah. It was
That's unbelievable. You're not going to win a football game defensively if you're giving up 67% third down rates.
no.
And that's huge.
What makes me feel better about this upcoming matchup is unless they scored a late touchdown because I stopped watching after a while, they only scored 16 points on the Chargers. And unless they scored like a late touchdown that
They
didn't
might have.
matter.
I can't remember. I nodded off in that game. It was quite frankly, it was pretty boring.
And the Chargers defense is okay, but it's not great.
No.
And so you were able to hold them to 16 points. And so again, we're setting this thing up. CJ Stroud, if you're one of the few people that listens to this show, it's setting you up, bud. Get you 20 points. Hold on to the football. Don't do anything stupid.
Yeah,
And
this is going to be one of those games for sure, Scott.
I wasn't sure because the Patriots I think were first or second in the AFC in points scored in the regular season, and so it was kind of somewhat worrying me because this is the only team this defense really hasn't faced this year. Every other team in the AFC playoffs, Buffalo and Denver, we've faced and we've held them down. So, New England's the only team we hadn't seen. But when you watch what the Chargers did to them, it makes you feel like, okay, we can do this as long as we don't do anything stupid. Of course, that's the whole caveat, right?
I mean, the Patriots obviously played an easier schedule as a non-division winner, right? So they get the Raiders, the Dolphins twice, who suck. They played Pittsburgh. Then they get the Panthers, the Bills twice. Saints suck. Titans suck. Browns suck. Falcons had a good defense. Tampa Bay was okay. Jets suck. Bengals suck. Giants suck. Bills again. Ravens, who are okay. Jets suck. Dolphins suck. So realistically, you played the Bills twice, who are good. You played Tampa, who's okay. Atlanta, who's okay. Pittsburgh, who's okay. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like their numbers are inflated for sure. They're not a bad. I'm not saying they're a bad team. They're a very good football team, and they're very good defensively. But I do think that offense, is inflated, and I do think that Drake May is going to have to show that he can take a beating and make throws and take a beating and stay in there and make throws. And he's a young quarterback. We don't know if he can do that because he hasn't done it in the playoffs yet, right? This is his first playoff run. And we don't know if he's the guy who's going to stand there and get his ass kicked and make the throws that he needs to make because he's going to get hit and he's going to get hit hard. That's going to happen.
The good news for Texans fans, they really only have one good wide receiver. So Stingley's going on him, a former Texan. And so Stingley's going on, Stingley's on him. So he's effectively taken out of the game.
I might see. Here we go with that. I might put Lassiter on Diggs and maybe put Stingley on someone like Douglas or one of their speedsters who likes to take deep shots and just completely take that out and take the ability to
Yeah,
stretch the field out of the game.
you do have that option. You're obviously gonna.
It's
They have
crazy that we can like, oh, which one of our all pro fucking corners do we want to put on?
Yeah, you've got a good tight end group there. That's going to be somewhat,
It's gonna come.
concerning.
They can go Hooper and Hunter Henry.
The only thing that worries me about May is that he's another guy that has some athleticism. You were doing the running pantomime there. Rodgers, obviously, there were opportunities for Rodgers to run the football on Monday night, and he was just like, nope.
He made some business decisions, Scott.
Which is funny considering it's probably his last football game. So
that makes a lot of sense. So he's like, I can walk out of this motherfucker healthy and go into retirement and run for fucking right wing governmental positions in Wisconsin on the fact that I am Aaron Rodgers, and I could go start my podcast and I'll take Joe Rogan down. I could go join the Pat McAfee show. But you know what I don't want to do is rehab an ACL before I go do all that shit.
What I was hoping would happen, though, Tim, is I was hoping that he would get beat down even more to the point where he got so concussed, he was like, I need to get me some vaccines. What was I?
Hey guys, you get your flu shot yet?
Was I pro-vax or anti-vax? I think I was pro-vax. I'm going to get some vaccines.
No, he's like,
I can't remember.
Checking him for a concussion in the tent, and he's like asking everybody, like, "Hey, did you get your flu shot? I don't want to be around anyone who's unvaccinated." And he's like, "Oh, he's concussed. This guy's like, we don't even need to look at the fingers. No. We don't need to hold up fingers. This is right here. This is it."
All right, Tim. Got to move on.
Let's move on to the Rockets, Scott. They did find a way to win tonight, but man, the Rockets have been sliding. And again, I think it comes back to the thing that we've been talking about since Fred VanVleet got hurt is they need a point guard. Ime Udoka called the team out after their loss to the Kings for just kind of relying on Kevin Durant to play hero ball too much. Right. We had an injury to Sengun. You obviously expect Durant to pick it up a little bit more. Now Sengun's back. And the Rockets are just very stagnant on offense. If they don't get it going in the fast break, it kind of turns down to either throw it down to Sengun and let him whirl and spin and try and have something, or, let's see what Kevin Durant can do. And we have struggled all season long in the half court. And we're going to continue to struggle in the half court unless this team goes out and they get a true point guard. Fred VanVleet was the straw that stirred this drink. You've got a lot of star power, but you need to find a way to assuage the stars. Phil Jackson wasn't the best tactician as a basketball coach, right? Like, he ran the same basic ass fucking triangle offense everywhere he went. But what he did know how to do was to talk to superstars. He knew how to work with guys like Pippen and Michael Jordan, although Michael would hate if I didn't say his name first. He knew how to work with Kobe and with Shaq, with Kobe and with Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom, right? Like, he knew how to work with these big names. And you need a guy like a Fred VanVleet who understands what his role is, who understands what he's there to do, and can deliver the basketball in good shooting situations or good near the rim situations to his teammates. And we don't have that right now. We've got a guy playing point guard who's a jump shooter in Reed Shepherd. We've got Aaron Holiday who can, I like Aaron Holiday. He's another jump shooter, but he's not a point guard. You've got Amen Thompson, who is wonderful with the ball in his hands going downhill, but he's not a point guard. Like, tell me who on this roster is the savior, because it's not Okaji. He had a nice start to the year, but he's a jump shooter. He's not a point guard. There's no way to solve this problem without making a move.
Well, and I'll say what I was actually pleasantly surprised with tonight. They were without Finney Mixon as they were resting his ankle, just a scheduled rest, and Tari Eason. And one of the things I noticed is that when you don't have Tari Eason, and I'm sorry to say this,
energy is down.
I hate to call this guy out, but basically you have a 3-man starting lineup. Because until tonight, Jabari Smith has been a ghost over about the last, say, 3-4 weeks. And when you get down to it, you mentioned point guard play. Even more basic than that, the same bugaboo that's come up to bite this team in the ass the last 3 seasons has bit them over the last 3 weeks. They are not consistent enough shooting the basketball. And, Jabari Smith in particular, he's got to hit that open three. And until the fourth quarter tonight, he actually had 7 straight, I think he had 8 straight points where he just at the end of the game just all of a sudden went nuts. But before that was the same Jabari Smith we've seen for the last 3 weeks where he just wasn't doing it. And I think Reed Shepherd is not a starter. And so when you have the big 3, right? Who's that fourth guy in the starting lineup?
When you look back at like the Miami Heat, right? They had their big 3. You had Dwayne Wade, you had LeBron James, and you had Chris Bosh. You can look at the Rockets combination of players of who that big 3 is. I think it's Amen, it's Durant, and it's Sengun.
Yeah.
But even then, they had Mario Chalmers, who was a true point guard, who won a national championship at Kansas playing point guard. A guy who won multiple NBA rings playing point guard. You don't have to score 20 points a game in this league to be a valuable piece of a roster, right? Like PJ Tucker made millions of dollars giving you 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, and 5 fouls. Literally made a career out of it, right? But what I need is a guy who just takes charge of the game and doesn't care about getting his, but cares about getting the offense going, getting the offense moving, getting people into the right sets, and getting guys good looks. If you need to make an open jump shot, you can make it, as Chalmers has shown, as Fred VanVleet has shown. And I get it. You had a plan for Fred to be that guy, and it didn't work out. But because of some of the moves that you made this offseason and locking yourself into certain money and guys for a certain period of time because you couldn't trade them, you've had to play 2 months of the season essentially without a point guard on this roster. And it's high time to make a move. Some of the guys that you could have went and got have now increased their value, increased their worth to a team that they're not going to give them up. Now, certainly other teams have maybe fallen out of contention and those players are going to be available. But, like the guy that I love, Jamal Shed, the window is gone on him. He's now truly one of the best, being talked about, one of the best point guards in the NBA right now as pure point guards. And I can't say I didn't fucking call it, but that's a whole other conversation, Scott.
You didn't. I didn't see you weigh in on my Ja Morant timeshare model.
I love the clickbait that you send me.
Well, and to pull back the curtain here, folks. Tim and I, we belong to various Facebook groups, and so one of them has listed the Minnesota Timberwolves as, they actually listed the not as suitors, but they had a deal in place. The Milwaukee Bucks had a deal in place, and then the Rockets had a deal in place. It involved Fred VanVleet and I think Finney Smith, and like a couple of first rounders, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I say, let Memphis make a deal with all 3 teams. You talk about loading up Memphis. I mean, they're going to be absolutely loaded when they make deals with all 3 teams for one guy. And, we get them a couple of days a week, maybe every 3rd Sunday. I think this could work, Tim.
Oh my God. Or just like, did you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Actually, I haven't watched that show.
You should. But do you remember the movie Invincible?
Yeah.
Okay. So after that movie comes out, they do a Always Sunny episode because people are like, the premise of this episode is the city of Philadelphia is clamoring for a chance to try out for the Eagles because Vince Papale got to try out for the Eagles, right? So the Eagles are like, fine, you Fox, like $200 and you can try out for the Eagles. And they set up like some bullshit thing in a park. And on the poster, it says there will be an appearance from Donovan McNabb. And so like the gang knows they're not going to make the team, but they're like, we're going to go, settle which one of us is the best athlete in the group. And, we get a chance to meet Donovan McNabb. So like this fucking beat up like 1980s Toyota Corolla rolls up, and like an overweight black guy who is not Donovan McNabb gets out of the car and he goes, "Hi, I'm Donovan McNabb, and I want to tell everyone here that you should start your day with a good breakfast at McDonald's, because McDonald's has what it needs to, get you the energy throughout the day." And they're like, that's not Donovan McNabb. And he's like, yes, it is. That's the Eagles guy's like, that's Donovan McNabb. They're like, no, that's a guy who's clearly been paid by McDonald's to be here. So it's like, what if like that's who you send, right? Like you just like grab 3 random people off the street and like put them in a Ja Morant jersey and give them like Ja Morant like dreadlock wigs and send them like different ways and be like, here you go. It's like it's Ja, you get a Ja, you get a Ja.
Yeah, one of the shows we have watched.
Every first round pick in 2028 is just Memphis is on the clock again. Memphis is on the clock again.
Well, there's a show we used to watch called Mystery Diners, which has been voted the worst show ever on network TV. And basically, it's this guy that who clearly was a hall monitor in elementary school, and he grew up, to basically catch people, scamming restaurants. And so you have this manager, one in San Francisco, and this guy just walks in, "Hey, it's Jamie Foxx." And it's clearly not Jamie Foxx. And he's like, he's selling autographs for $10. Come on over here.
That's like the Eddie Bald Hispanic guy throws a white suit on and sunglasses. They're like, oh my God, Pitbull's here tonight.
Oh, man. All right, Tim. Are we
going to give some awards away?
I think so.
All right, Scott, it is about that time. Who do you want to pow right in the kisser this week?
We've been bagging on Aaron Rodgers pretty good here, Tim. I'm not going to bag him, even though I'd love to. He hasn't done anything in the last 48 hours that has pissed me off. But the people that pissed me off is just basically the whole media reaction to this whole thing last night. People in the press conference, "Are you going to retire?" And it's like, do you think he's going to fucking tell you at the post-game press conference? Do you think anybody would tell you that they're going to retire at a post-game press conference? I mean, this is just stupid. I remember there was a fan, I think who yelled at him, "Retire, get out." That was pretty funny. I give kudos to that guy. But I mean, to sit there and I don't know, did you see what happened in Jacksonville after their loss?
I did, yeah. Actually, I really liked what that woman had to say. She's not the beat reporter; she's the actual editor. Probably has, if you care about football and you've lived in Jacksonville, like you've been around some shit for a while. So I get why she said that. I don't understand some of the outrage to her comments.
But I think, to me, and I realize that journalistically you're supposed to ask the question, right? But to me, you ask the question once and then you move on to the game. I mean, that's what you do. You one person takes the bullet for the whole room, asks the stupid question. You get your boilerplate. I'm going to do a darker treat, and I'll figure it out. I'm going to go on McAfee, and I'll figure it out at that point. Whatever the fuck he's going to say.
I got a bottle of ayahuasca waiting for me. Once I down that and have my spirit vision, I'll be able to give you guys an answer.
But to me, and I hate Aaron Rodgers. I sport hate Aaron Rodgers. I don't know him personally, but I sport hate him because to me he's a meathead. And I hated all the build up, before this game, how cerebral Aaron Rodgers. Like, bullshit. He's not fucking cerebral. Come on. He's been around for 20 years, sure. So yeah.
I will say, Scott, I will. One thing I did notice is, and it'll go with, no, go ahead. I'll save it for my hat tip. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
But, you know, to me, that whole build up to that whole thing and the way that they're treating that, and of course, you know, it's not going to be about the Texans. And even the win is not, you know, they interviewed them, sure, but most of that post game was about, you know, is Aaron Rodgers going to retire when we're not going to know that night? So let's just shelf that and move on and cover other things.
Nope, I couldn't agree more. And I do want to push back on the cerebral comment, but I'll say why a little bit later. I also, I'm not going for the media in general. I'm going specifically for ESPN. Um, I get that Mike Tomlin retired today, so maybe it takes some of the teeth out of these comments. But like, it to me, it truly felt like ESPN was campaigning to get Mike Tomlin fired during the game. Like numerous times, is this Mike Tomlin's final game? Will they fire Mike Tomlin? Is Mike Tomlin? If they fire him, there will be other people who want him. Like the whole fucking game. And again, I am not a Joe Buck guy, right? Like I think Aikman is fine. I think there are much better analysts on broadcast than there are Troy Aikman, but I get it. He's famous. He's got a good voice. I think Joe Buck is awful. I get it. He's famous, whatever, but I hate listening to him call games, and I hate that he's risen to this level. But I get Aaron Rodgers deserves some level of respect, but the waxing poetic that happened after the scoop and score, where like everybody kind of realized, or really no, it was after the Texans went down the field and scored on that long drive, and then they kind of realized like this is it, and then we just start like sucking Aaron Rodgers' dick on air, and it's just too much, Scott. Like I get it, he's a Hall of Famer. You make a comment and you move on, right? But the Texans just put together one of the most unbelievable defensive performances you've ever seen. And they ushered this man into retirement in a fucking wheelchair. And, hey, but we're going to sit there and just talk about how great he is and all the throws he's made. And on top of that, we're literally like campaigning midair. Is Mike Tomlin going to get fired? Should he get fired? I don't know, but he could be fired. It's been a long time since you want to play off. It's just, they're predetermined game scripts, not necessarily like for what happens on the field, but what we're going to talk about doesn't vary, right? Like they felt the need to really hammer home the question of Mike Tomlin's tenure. Hey, we got in a pregame meeting, we got to make sure we talk about this, and they never fucking veered away from it, and it just got old, Scott. Like it just, there was a time when ESPN was the creme de la creme. Like if ESPN was doing a game, it was going to be well done. It was going to have the best broadcasters. It was going to have the best camera work. It was going to have the best graphics. It was ESPN did things right. And we're just past that, right? Like when ESPN has a game now, it's going to be dog shit. Like CBS does a better job. Sunday night football on NBC is better than Monday Night Football. Quite frankly, at this point, the prime broadcast is better than Monday Night Football. Like ESPN has just become dog shit.
Well, I was going to say before I move on to my horse's ass that I think CBS is getting the Super Bowl in 2028, and I think they really need to think about getting the JJ Watt team into that Super Bowl in place of Tony Romo, because Tony Romo is really unlistenable because the guy does absolutely zero preparation. And
correct.
It's just, I think somebody's wife was talking about how the fact it's like, listening to, your drunk friend, watch a football game. And it's just, that's rough.
Tony got a lot of love, and rightfully so, his first couple seasons, because he was able to just quickly like diagnose what teams are going to do and talk about it on air. But once he's been out of the league for a certain period of time, you don't know what teams are doing anymore, right? Like you can no longer make those same diagnoses because the game has changed. Offenses have changed. And he doesn't do anything to, as you said, prepare, to talk about tendencies, to do this other stuff. He makes wild guesses as to what the play will be. And, half the time he's right, and half the time he's like, oh, wow, they went the opposite way with it. Okay, I can see what they were thinking there. It's just too much, right? Like Tom Brady had a phenomenal segment this week, Scott, on throwing the ball in the wind, right? He spent just a few minutes talking about during the 49ers game about, the having the tip of the ball up versus the tip of the ball down and the difference that makes, right? Like those are the kind of things like the internet went crazy for that shit because like we didn't know that. But now Tom Brady's telling us, hey, when I threw into wind, here's what I did subtly to make the ball kind of pierce through a little bit more. And you're like, oh wow, Tom, okay. But yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so my horse's ass, on the heels of saying all that, I am saying it in the original intent now. Because what was the original intent of the award, Tim?
We want you out of town.
I am going AA Ron. AA Ron Rodgers. Please walk away. And really, I don't see anywhere who's going to sign him at this point if he wanted to play.
At this point, I think the Steelers are probably out without Tomlin wanting to bring him back. Maybe a team like Arizona for a bridge year if they don't get a guy in the draft and they've got a new head coach who doesn't want to bring Kyler Murray back and they just need a guy for a year. But outside of a team like that, I don't know who.
Because maybe Minnesota. I don't, if they wanted somebody to compete with McCarthy, but I'm tired of I'm tired of it, and it comes back to a lot of the off the field stuff. Aaron Rodgers as a football player, I enjoyed watching Aaron Rodgers as a football player. I mean, he probably maybe more physically gifted than the vast majority of quarterbacks that we've watched. Certainly more physically gifted than Tom Brady or Drew Brees, but just the off the field stuff, just and the whole me. I'm gonna training camp is starting, mandatory mini camp starting. I want to go to Egypt because I have to go right now on my vacation. I can't go at any other time of the year. Got to go right now. The whole
Scott, everybody knows you have to go to the desert in the summer. Okay. You don't get the full experience unless you go to the Sahara Desert in July. Okay. You're going to be a little bitch and go in December. No, you go when it's hot as balls and you take the fucking ayahuasca and you sweat that shit out and you let the aliens talk to you at the pyramids. That's what you do.
And so I'm done with Aaron Rodgers. I'm glad that we're the team. I mean, that would also be that much more poetic when, as you mentioned, Kalen Bullock is catching his final pass, and we just absolutely, basically choked him out. In football terms, that's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting to be the team that choked out Aaron Rodgers.
No, I'm with you. There was a time where I really did enjoy watching Aaron Rodgers throw the football. Like, I had a buddy one year who had Aaron Rodgers in fantasy, and we lost a lot of Packers football together that year. And the guy made some unbelievable throws. Like, there seemed times where he would just throw it as hard as he can, and it just like he would just pull a string, and the ball would just perfectly drop into Jordy Nelson's arms or Devontae Adams' arms on these deep routes. It was just like, man, how does he have this touch? But like many other people in America, COVID soured my taste of Aaron, right? Like, I don't need to know what Aaron Rodgers' opinion on vaccines are. I don't care. If Aaron Rodgers wants to tell me how to, break down plays to be better at Madden, I'm all for it. Like, if he's like, hey, when you see this look, you should call this audible and you'll be really good at Madden. Love it. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. What I don't need is medical advice. And he just was a big part of that trend in America to weigh in as non-medical professionals and, question things and take fucking horse drugs instead of just, the advice of our medical doctors. So I do agree with you. I have had enough of Aaron Rodgers. And I'm done, man. I'm ready with you. I'm ready for some fresh blood. And, I hope for the best for Pittsburgh. I think it's a stable organization, and I think they deserve to have a good quarterback. It's been a long time since Ben Roethlisberger was there.
Yeah, and and you mentioned Malik Willis. I mean, that could be a good destination for Willis.
That'd be interesting. It's going to depend on the head coach, obviously, right? I think he needs a guy who can really work with a quarterback, or at least like an offensive coordinator who can really work with quarterbacks. But um, we'll see, right? Like obviously Tennessee's a shit show, and Matt LaFleur is a quarterback guy, so there's a there's going to be a difference in coaching there in general. But no, I think that's a good pick, Scott. The in the merit of the original, intentions of the award, I am ready to see Aaron Rodgers happy trails right off into the sunset. So good call there.
All right, who you got, Tim?
This is a tough one. I think I'm going to save my political one for later. And this is going to, it kind of hurts because I'm talking about a couple Texans here. But, I know you've noticed, and I started off the show in zest, but the Houston Texans and many other athletes in America have developed this trend of getting to the podium, taking a question, and then before they answer the question, they just completely disregard it to make just a blind statement of faith of, I love Jesus and I want to thank him for being here and giving me this platform, and through him all things are possible, and da, 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 da. Okay, yeah, now you asked me about the cover two play and like, I get it. I get that we are a nation that loves people who make those overt declarations of faith. Um, but it just seems so fake. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that those guys are doing it to be popular. Like, they may truly, feel that this is the best way to spread Christianity or whatever it is. I don't. I'm over it, right? Like I don't need to know what everybody's religion is. I really don't. I think you and I are in a similar vein on this, especially because you were a confirmation teacher when I was going through that process. But I was always a big believer, and I truly believe that the Catholic stance on this is that your actions should draw people to you to say, hey, wow, I really admire and respect the way that you live life. How do you find the strength to do these things? Oh, hey, I'm actually a follower of the Catholic Church. I believe in these things. It gives me these pillars, yada, yada, yada. I'd love to invite you to Mass, show you what it's all about. Right? To me, that's how I was raised. And again, part of your teaching process, you were there, Scott. That's what we were taught was you don't just shout it from the mountaintops. You don't walk around with shirts that say, I heart Jesus. You don't need the bumper sticker that says honk if you love Jesus. You don't need these just overt declarations of faith, right? Like I think Tim Tebow was very out there with his faith. He kneeled and thanked God after every touchdown. But did he do this? I don't remember. I don't feel like it was this just blatant. Before you answer any question, I'm here because Jesus put me here. Like we know, right? Like if we're already a Christian, we know that. And if you're not, are you really watching the ESPN coverage of football? See the post-game interview with Will Anderson. See him say, first and foremost, I want to thank Jesus Christ. I'm a vessel through him. And go, you know what? I should give this church thing a try. Everybody's talking about it. But now that Will Anderson said that he's a vessel through all things are possible, I need to go to church. Like, no, it doesn't. It's just a declaration to just say it. And I just, to me, it's very distasteful, Scott.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And really, I kind of wish they'd use the platform to sit there and say, hey, maybe you can, donate your time to this cause or, do something like that. Because
we'll get to that.
Because to me, what frustrates me is this whole, with all deference to God and Jesus, I don't know how much God and Jesus really wants, is putting you in position to be a star in the NFL really maximizing your talents in God's eyes? Is that really
I mean,
what
I
it
can
is?
see. Look, if you look at it from the way of, I was blessed with this athletic ability. The athletic ability allowed me to make millions of dollars, and because of that, I started foundations X, Y, and Z, and then was able to change hundreds or if not thousands of lives through my charitable work. That part, that's the action.
Yeah,
That's where you are the vessel, right? That is truly being the vessel that God gave you this gift of talent so you could then go out and do, right? But it isn't saying, thank you, God, for making me big and strong and fast. And now I'm a millionaire and I have dope fucking cars and I can say thank you on TV. And I'm not saying that that's what Will Anderson or CJ Stroud do. I'm not. I'm just saying it's, if you want to say I'm a vessel and God gave me these things and through him all things are possible, that's where you help. That's where you go out and do. That's where you get in the community and find out what's needed and provide for people. Right? Like you don't need to make the declarations of faith. And you know, I've there's like the show I used to really enjoy a lot of. I've maybe fallen out of favor a little bit just because of time has passed. And but in the West Wing in the final season, um, they have an episode where the subject of church becomes a big deal, right? Like one of the candidates is Catholic and goes to mass every day, and that's the Democratic candidate, and the other candidate, Senator Vinnick, hadn't been to church since his wife died, right? And so he and President Bartlett are having a conversation, and the line that Bartlett says is when you ask for, I'm sorry, actually Vinnick says this after the conversation and to the press, is when you ask for overt displays of faith from your politicians, you're just begging to be lied to, right? Like if you make it in order to be a Republican, you have to be Christian. All they're going to do is just fucking lie. Example now. So again, if we make it to where you have to put this out there, it's just blatantly obvious, and it just seems distasteful and tacky and just not authentic. And at the end of the day, the root of Christianity is being a loving, authentic, honest, truthful person. And to me, that just ain't it.
Yeah, that's where I like the my cause, my cleats, or whatever they call it. I like the idea of sitting there saying, I have this platform because I'm famous, and I'm going to use it to help these people.
I mean, say what you want about how frustrating Framber Valdez was this season, right? Like, as a pitcher and a Houston Astro, he was very, very frustrating. But to me, Framber's a perfect example in his community of a guy who is that he was given a gift, he's using that to be a vessel and practicing what he preaches, right? Like he built a church, he built a hospital in his village, he goes back and does those things. Dikembe Mutombo, another great example, right? Goes back into the Congo and truly tries to lift those communities up through providing necessary services like schools and hospitals and administration buildings and things like that, right? Like, did Dikembe start every interview with, "Hey, Dikembe, 2 seconds left in the game. Michael's coming right at you. You found a way to block the ball. Big win for the Hawks. How did that go for you tonight?" "Oh, no, no, no. Thank you very much. I first want to thank God for..." No, like he was, I mean, that's not a good Dikembe. He was deep.
Yeah.
"Oh, no, no, no." But
Yeah.
still, I mean, I don't want him to be offensive to Dikembe. He just had a very distinct voice. But no, that to me, it was just, you could be this vessel. You could be the person who truly understood that your gifts allowed you to be in a position of wealth that you never thought you would be. And you give back and you raise kids and family members up and members of the community up, and you provide certain things that they don't have. And you don't publicize it, right? You just do it.
All right, Tim. We ready to give away some positive vibes?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Scott. People think we're a negative show, but we're actually pretty positive people. I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But
I'm,
let's give away the hat tips this week. Who do you have for us?
I'm going double barrel politics with these two awards, Tim. So my hat tip goes to the artists, the writers, and particularly our comedians. Because wouldn't you agree? We've had some good laughs on this show, right, Tim?
We try.
We try. Like last week, that whole bit on pirates. I mean, I re-listened to
You
that.
like that?
That
Yeah.
was some good stuff, and I love that. But we consume our late night comedy on YouTube. I don't know about you. We get it in about 10 and 12-minute spurts where you get the monologue and usually like an extended feature. And to me, there is more truth telling that happens in those monologues than what's happening in mainstream media. And Stephen Colbert had us going last night. So I'm sure you've seen the bit where mid sentence Donald Trump just kind of gets up and wanders back to the back window and starts looking out.
I have.
Did you catch any of the comedian commentary on that?
I didn't know. I don't watch a lot of the late night shows. I think that's more of maybe a generational thing. I watch a ton of comedians, but I watch more stand-up specials and very left-leaning comics who talk about these things, but in different platforms.
Well, Colbert, what he said, and he was the only one to say this because they all addressed it. All of them, I mean, laughed at the same thing. Folks, he had to fart. So he had to get up and went to the back window. And so the most hilarious thing that I saw today was one of the oil executives said, like, he smelled like stale roast beef. He farted audibly at least 12 times. And when he went back to the back window, we thought he was just going senile. But the fact that they mentioned that he audibly farted 12 times means that Colbert was probably right.
To me, what it actually means, Scott, is he thought that one might not have been a fart.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe he thought this was one I can't trust. Let me step away, see if it's a little liquidy or if it's just a regular fart. Oh, it was just a fart. Let me step back. Okay, we're good.
So Janet ran the half marathon this last Sunday, and I'd have to give her, another hat tip because, unfortunately, with my diabetes and my feet situation, it's just not something that I'm able to do anymore. And she said that about at mile 6 or 7, somebody put up a sign said, "Do not trust a fart." After mile 6 or 7, I was like, I think they got a point. They got a point there. And so, when I'm thinking of Colbert, I'm thinking like he's probably on the money with that, and he's meaning to be funny. But these comedians are telling more truth. Cliff Cash is he a guy that you've seen clips of?
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
telling more truth than anybody in the news cycle. You got these writers, particularly in independent sources like Substack and things like that, that are grinding out great work. And Tim and I are, we're producing stuff, but Tim and I tend to be on the more serious end of the equation. We haven't really tried our hand at satire. I don't know about you, but satire is not really my gift.
I don't know. After my pirate bit the other day, maybe I
Yeah,
can
I
do it.
mean, we both can tell a good joke, but I don't know. Satire takes a special talent. So I want to hat tip those folks because the whole thing is that you are only fully human when you can experience the fullness of human emotions, which includes anger, which definitely you should be angry at what's going on right now. Afraid, you should definitely be afraid of what's going on right now. Definitely sad at the people that it's impacting, but you also got to laugh. We have to laugh in life, or else life is really not worth living.
No, I couldn't agree more. I listen to a lot of stand-up comedy now. Prior to the inauguration, I was a big podcast guy, and many of them political. One of them, tracking Alex Jones, the rest of the right-wing grifters, and I just realized my mental state could not handle listening to those things every day and being unable to do anything about it. And I just switched to I need the spoken word, so I switched to stand-up comedy. I can't recommend Mark Maron enough to you. He is probably the funniest, very left-wing comedian that I know. he's got Netflix specials, he's got HBO specials, he's on Amazon on Music. I'm sure he's on other platforms as well. But yeah, I listen to Mark Maron a lot, and then I also listen to um, a lot of Mitch Hedberg. Love Mitch Hedberg, just a
Yeah.
good one later. Um, and then some other left wingers, Patton Oswald, Dave Anthony, Gareth Reynolds, some guys like that. But if you can't laugh about what's going on, because let's be honest, Scott, like if this was like a Marx Brothers movies about like a dictator who shits himself, or like a Coen Brothers movie about like a dictator who shits himself, like we'd leave the theaters going like, that was hilarious, man. Oh my god, that was so well written. It was so funny. Nazis are so fucking dumb. I love it. But like, no, this is real fucking life. So yeah.
All right, who you got, Tim?
I'm gonna do a couple. I one more than the other. I'll do my secondary one first. I want to hat tip Hannah McNair. Obviously, Mrs. McNair does a lot of wonderful things, and she's a big reason why D'Amico Ryans is the head coach of the Houston Texans, and her falling asleep in the second half of a football game completely changed the fortune of our franchise. But the reason I want to hat tip Miss McNair this week is, I don't know if you knew this or not, but she is probably one of the biggest proponents of women's sports in the entire city of Houston. Started a women's flag football team. She's pushing to give some spotlight to the new women's volleyball team. Hosts a podcast with the wives of the players and former players. Really does a nice job of shining a light on different women's organizations and different women's sports organizations throughout the city of Houston. So I do want to tip my cap to Mrs. McNair for not only being a great part of the Texans ownership and helping to do what they've done on the field, but for also really connecting with the community. I think she said she had a stat that like 48% of Texans fans are female, right? So why are we not, you know, having some women's flag football leagues around Houston? Why are we not doing more of these things? And I commend her for being on the forefront of that in the city of Houston.
Absolutely. Good call there, Tim. All right.
And my main hat tip, I want to hat tip Aziz Al Shair. Scott, obviously, his play on the field was phenomenal. And the one area I wanted to push back on the Aaron Rodgers thing was early on in the game. Rodgers had figured out the Texans' defensive calls in those first two drives. When they're calling things out near the line of scrimmage, Rodgers figured it out, and he hit them pretty hard on those first two drives on quick plays and quick hitters to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers, let him run and with some blockers ahead of him. Aziz Al figured that out, and they switched to hand signals on defense. And what happened, Scott, after the halfway through the second drive of the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
They did not move the football for the rest of the game.
The fuck they did not. So, I commend Aaron Rodgers for, being heady enough to pick up on the calls and take advantage of it. But holy shit, Aziz Isair on the other side being smart enough to realize what was happening and being able to, get the defense to quickly rally and make that change and go to hand signals instead of audible calls was phenomenal. Then to show up on the post-game show with the Stop Genocide face tape still on, fully displayed, in a world that has twisted support of the people who live in Gaza into anti-Semitic hate, I couldn't be prouder of that man for, number one, being on the right side of history, but number two, using his platform in a way that, he didn't sit there and yell free Gaza or anything that would, he just stopped genocide. You have a problem with that? You're a fucking piece of shit. But everybody knows what he's talking about, and he brought attention to it, and he did it in a way that was very smart, very classy. And then on top of that, the way he answered those questions, they were trying to goad him, I think, into maybe saying something stupid or talk about when you were 0-3 and just stupid shit like that, right? And his answers to those questions were phenomenal. We've got a real, he's a real culture guy on defense, right? He's a real leader. Kind of liken him to when the Rockets brought in Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, right? You needed those guys to come in and set the culture in the locker room. Aziz Al-Shaair is one of those guys who, kind of helped turn this Texans thing around, especially defensively. He's always where you need him to be. He's a phenomenal coverage linebacker. He's a big hitter. He's a humanitarian outside of the field. Happy to and proud to call him a Houston Texan.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tim.
All right, Scott. That's enough positivity, right? Let's crown our scumbags of the week.
All right, so I've got a trifecta that I'm going to put all in one umbrella. So I'm going to go with Caroline Levitt, JD Vance, and Christy Nome. And I am picking them because I'm avoiding our president, because our president, as we pointed out, his brain's gone bye-bye. These are three people that know better. I was going to do this in the last segment, but I promised. There is a line from a song that I bought when I was a kid. This was released in 1992. So let me just say this verse and tell me who I'm talking about here, Tim. She's different from Cro-Magnon Man. She's different from Anne Boleyn. She's different from the Rosenbergs and from the unknown Jew. She's different from the unknown Nicaraguan, half superstar, half victim. She's a Victor star, exceptionally new. She's different from the Nagogo and from the Kangabomo. She's different from the Aztec and from the Cherokee. She's everybody's sister. She's symbolic of our failure. She's the 1 in 50 million that can help us to be free because she died on TV.
Well, you're referring to Miss Good.
But that song was written in 1992.
Hey, I've talked to you about the parallels of some of the songs from periods of protest that still ring true today.
And that's Roger Waters. He was talking about somebody who he saw die at Tiananmen Square, which would have been 1990 in China. And that's why I love the artist, because the artist, as you mentioned, you can write something, like 1984 is going to be moved into the nonfiction section if it hasn't already. I mean, it's just, things that, that seemingly are timeless. But here's what kills me. And I wrote a piece today, Tim, and I don't know if you got a chance to read this one yet, but there is a science, and I wish that I'd come up with this. I didn't. In psychology, that essentially the left wing brain and the right wing brain are very different in how they view morality. And you would agree that we are both left wing brain people, right, Tim?
I would agree with that.
We view morality through results, through outcomes. So Miss Good was shot. She shouldn't have been shot. That's the outcome. There's nothing to justify her getting shot. Charlie Kirk was shot. Shouldn't have been shot. We can agree that with the outcome that those were outrageous events. But you'll notice that the right-wing brain defends or, goes up against anybody that criticized Charlie Kirk, but is fully on board with going up against Miss Good. And the reason is because the right-wing brain doesn't think in terms of outcomes. They think in terms of team. And so, and I'm going to go here, Tim, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to own up to at least my own culpability in this. But would you agree that if we were not Astros fans, that we would be a little bit harder on the Astros about the sign stealing scandal?
A little bit, yes, but I also like to think I'm a rational enough baseball fan to not be one of the ones who's spending money on a trash Astros jersey, right? Stuff like that.
Oh no, and of course not. But I think that a part of us partially rationalizes it by saying everybody else was doing it. they should have investigated the entire league. And these are things that are true, but they're also rationalizations because we are Astro fans. They are our team. And I think there are a lot of people that view morality the same way. And so these are people that don't see themselves as hypocrites because Irene Good was not on their team. She's a lesbian. She's a poet. She was demonstrating against ICE. So therefore, fuck around and find out. That's what happened to her. I mean, you get situations like, like we get with the church. Oh, I think we should help poor people, but not those poor people because those poor people are not on our team. They're Black or Hispanic or Asian or African or they're lazy. So we shouldn't help them. But I'm still a good Christian person because I help other people that look like me, that I think are on my team. And so whenever Caroline, and I think all three of those individuals know exactly what they're doing, because I think there was a ton of cognitive dissonance that was hanging in the air until they made their statements, which were rather quick before they could possibly have known all the facts, because they heard white woman shot by ICE and they thought, oh shit, that's somebody on our team. MAGA's not going to stand for this. So we got to come up with, look, she's a lesbian.
Domestic terrorist.
She's a poet. So she's a domestic terrorist, which these words have meanings, folks. You cannot throw around terms like domestic terrorist without any regard for what they mean. And I think the majority of Americans know they're full of shit. But I think, the cultist will just lap it up. Oh, yeah, she deserved to die. She was a domestic terrorist. Oh, yeah, she was there to demonstrate. Oh, yeah, she should have just complied. And the thing is that the rest of us are like, and to me, it's not even to the point of anger. It's to the point of confusion. Why does her being a lesbian matter? What's the point of that? Somebody released a poem that she came up with. Who gives a shit whether you like the poem or not? Why does that matter? And to me, I'm ashamed to say that J.D. Vance is a guy. That shames me. And I'm glad that there were some people within the American church that came out against that and made statements against that. And I'm glad the Pope is stepping up and is making statements. More of the American church needs to step up. We need more bishops stepping up and saying, this is just flat out wrong, and what this administration is doing is wrong. And Caroline Leavitt, she can wear her cross, and she can go out on stage, and she can just openly lie. And you talked about, outward signs of, oh, this is my faith. Yeah, right. And Kristi Noem, I mean, her performance on CNN on the morning show, and Stephen Miller's performance on CNN. I don't know if you saw his last one.
No.
Basically, it was him screaming, "Might makes right," just over and over again using different words. There is no international law, he said. Might makes right.
Sadly, he is right on that because there's no one there to enforce it. There are laws, but there's no system to hold anyone accountable, right? Like America was kind of the world's police force, and I agree with you, Scott. Like your idea of team is perfectly right because most far right people believe America's the good guys. So if we did it, it was good, right? Like Venezuela is a great example. America got a dictator out of there. We did a good thing. Like, no, there's laws. Just because he was a bad person doesn't mean that you can just go in there and fucking kidnap him because there are many other people in the world who think Trump is a bad person. Are you okay if they come in and kidnap him? No, because he's on your team, as you said.
But, to me, the stupidity, and I don't know if you've seen what NATO and Europe has proposed will happen if we invade Greenland?
It's over. NATO is done, and we are now enemies essentially, and going to be treated like aggressive warmongers, like we are.
Well, and we lose every foreign base.
Yeah, that yes, yeah.
Well, and they've got one more chip that they can play. That if they want to fuck us over, if they sell every government bond that they own, the U.S. government bond,
Fucked.
do you realize what happens in that case?
We default.
We default, and the dollar is no longer the standard currency in the world. I mean, we would go into hyperinflation, hyperinflation. And in that case, we might even see, you might see that. Remember that term stagflation from the 70s?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we might be seeing if
Yeah.
that happens. And so yes, Europe does not have the military might to defeat us, but they can fuck us over big time.
They don't have to do business with us. They can take away our bases. They can fuck our economy. Yeah, it could get bad. My scumbag this week, Scott, is one of yours as well, but for a slightly different reason. One, Kristi Noem stood at a podium on January 8th, one day after Ms. Good was shot and killed. And I don't know if you'd noticed, Scott, but there was a phrase on the front of that podium.
I did.
And that phrase was one of ours, all of theirs. Now, obviously, there is some intention there. And the idea is if you attack an ICE agent, we will kill everyone. There's also some fucking history there because that phrase exactly was a Nazi slogan. It was used after a Nazi soldier was killed in Czechoslovakia, and they fucking eliminated the entire village. And the phrase that the Nazis used was one of ours, all of yours. This is disgusting. You're not at war, right? Like just because people are protesting you, they are not enemy combatants. They are the people that you have sworn to protect and are supposed to be protecting by getting the murderers and rapists and whatever the fuck criminals, whatever, right? But we all knew that was a lie. And now you've just said the quiet part out loud again for the God knows how many times that you view people who disagree with you as enemies, that you don't think it's okay for anyone to have an opinion other than the one that you have. And we can't live in that world. We can't live in a world where someone is surrounded by, a group of armed masked thugs who don't have official badges anywhere on their uniform. She waves them through. They don't move. Guy puts himself right in front of her vehicle. She tries to steer away from him. I mean, everything that is there in the videos, right? I don't need to recount it for you. But what I don't need, or what I do need to do, is make sure that you're aware that she didn't take one of theirs, right? Like that didn't happen. But they're now going after Minnesotans. They've killed more people. They're rounding people up off the streets. They're going in hard. They arrested a disabled woman today trying to get down the street to a doctor's appointment, and they wouldn't let her through. They're trying to fuck shit up just because we disagreed with them. And it's a really bad state. You and I talked about that this was a possibility 2 years ago, right? Like where the idea of outspoken defiance was going to put a target on our back. And at some point, like there are going to be people in government who would prefer to just kill us. And they're openly saying that now. And so, Kristi Noem, you fucking dog killing bitch, you are my scumbag this week.
So I got two thoughts on that, Tim. The first one is what I said at the end of my piece, and this is my and I think you and I are both in this same boat. That if they decide we didn't comply and they decided to end our life, there would be hit pieces on us.
They're pulling directly from our Substack. So talk about how we're left wing, fucking operatists, Antifa members, whatever.
I've got a trove of shit that goes back to high school. I wrote for our high school. I was a liberal back in high school, Tim, when Clear Lake, remember that student newspaper?
Yeah.
I was a liberal way back then. They could go back that far. They could interview my high school classmates who could talk about how much of a radical liberal I always was. I mean, they could go back and look at the columns that I wrote at TCU. They don't have to work that hard. But the other thing is, and you've been in the advertising world more than I have, how many people sat around and looked at that slogan before they put it on a podium?
I am gonna bet that Stephen Miller specifically was like, we should put this out there, and they were just like, okay.
So you're gonna either sell us on you're so brain dead stupid that you didn't know that was a Nazi slogan, or you know full well it's a Nazi slogan and you just don't fucking care at this point. It's one of those two.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not one of those. It's you and I both know it's two. You and I both know it's not fucking option number one. As a nation, we have allowed a fascination with Nazi Germany to play on for far too long, right? We had Operation Paperclip after World War II, where we bring over like all of their top rocket scientists and they eventually become the basis for NASA. We have during fucking Watergate, one of the members of the committee to elect Richard Nixon is literally a Hitler enthusiast. Mark Fuhrman was a cop for the LAPD who was a Hitler enthusiast and a white supremacist. We've had skinhead neo-Nazis that have been a part of American culture for God knows how long. And the Blues Brothers in 1980, whatever it was in that movie, there's literally Nazis in Chicago, right? Like we've had this obsession with the Nazis and we never fucking stamped it out because of freedom of speech or whatever. But we've allowed this, hey, Nazis were actually kind of cool and they did some cool things if you actually pay attention vibe to fester in society for far too long. And now those kids who were saying those things in high school to be edgy and fucking thought they were cool for it are the chief of staff to the president of the United States. He's a bald alien looking fuck named Stephen Miller and all his other fucking Nazi pals, right? Like all these guys never got stamped out. You go to Germany and you start talking like that, it's fucking illegal. You cannot talk about like what Hitler actually made some good points. Nope, fucking jail. Like that, you can't do that. And I understand freedom of speech, but fascism thrives on the ability of being able to say whatever the fuck you want with no consequences. We set this in motion. We did nothing to stop it. You and I both know it isn't the first option of stupidity. It's malice.
But my point is that even if it is, to me, that's worse because it's abject ignorance. But I'm sure you've heard the term the paradox of tolerance.
I have, yeah.
And so for our listening audience, basically what that is that you cannot, if you're tolerant towards all views, eventually the intolerant views are going to win. And that's what we've done, is what Tim just described. We've allowed these things to fester. We've allowed, some people to think it's cool. I mean, this is Cartman dressing up like Hitler for Halloween. And then just the video, and the only video was, dressing up like Hitler isn't cool. And of course, Cartman takes the exact wrong message from it because, he's the junk in everybody's soul. I don't know if you heard that quote from the creators of South Park.
I have, yeah.
But it's rough. I mean, and all you've got the Mrs. Cartmans of the world saying, Well, my son is grounded for 2 weeks for trying to exterminate the Jews.
Yep.
I mean, that's what we've done.
My son tried to restart the Civil War. He lost his phone.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically where we are as a country. You know, and this goes back to Nixon. It goes all the way back to Nixon. It goes back to Ford saying, "I want to heal I want to heal the nation. I want to, pardon." And you know what? Back at the time, I would have tended to agreed with them, but we've let that shit go on. What did we do with all the criminals in the second Bush administration?
Look, we've never held anyone accountable that
They
was
never.
rich and powerful. You didn't. You lied to go to war with Iraq. You created weapons of mass destruction. Colin Powell, literally annihilated his whole career in about 20 minutes. A whole career of goodwill was just flushed down the toilet. Nothing happened to them. The entire mortgage banking industry nearly collapsed the economy of America. No one went to jail. Like literally no one went to jail. Enron, very few consequences at the top. Like one guy went to jail, one guy killed himself, everybody else kind of gets off scot-free. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on, right? Like how many billionaire crimes get committed and it's community service, it's a fine, it's restitution, but no one ever goes to jail. There's no consequences. Like in my opinion, like people know more what happened about Enron in Houston with like the financial improprieties, but they caused rolling blackouts in California in the 80s and 90s by fucking with people's power, and people died. Like to be like those guys should have had death sentences. The mortgage bankers in the mid 2000s, like thousands of people committed suicide because of the financial situations that they were put into by these banks. They should be held liable for those deaths. Like there should have been a death penalty on the board. You do that one or two times, Scott, people don't fuck around anymore when they know there's consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that's quite the award season we had for you here this week, but it has to be said. Like we can't sit quietly anymore and bite our tongues or anything like that. To do so at this point is simply irresponsible.
All right, Tim.
All right, Scott, that is going to do it for us here this week. We hope to be back next week talking about another Texans road win. And it would be really cool, Scott, if the Bills win too, then we could have an AFC championship game in Houston. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We hope that your Houston Texans find a way to win in the playoffs in Fox Sports, something they have never done before. But hey, this has been a season of firsts all year long. We will see everybody next week on Born on the Bayou Sports.